Have you ever thought about starting your own food business? Even if you haven't considered starting a business, you might have that in your future. You never know where life is going to take you.
Just thinking it was going to last for his high school, whatever, like grade 12, and then we'd be done.
You might be content with the career that you have, but life might have other plans in store for you. Meet Surria Fadel, co-founder of Cedar Valley Selections. Cedar Valley Selections is not your average pita chip company. They are creating high-quality, authentic chips in a variety of different flavors. Surria didn't plan to start a food business, and she was happy working in her career as a personal trainer. But then her son, Ameen, came up and changed her life. Ameen received a small grant from his school, and he wanted to share his mother's famous Fattoush Salad dressing with everyone. A lot has happened since that day, including Surria and Ameen securing a $1 million deal with the infamous Arlene Dickinson of Dragon's Den. So in this episode of the Food Grits podcast, you will learn how Surria and her son Ameen started Cedar Valley Selections. We talk about the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, as well as Surria's amazing experience on Dragon's Den and what that was like. Oh, and we'll also talk about how you can find the why in your career. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Let's move into our conversation with Surria.
My name is Surria Fadel, and I am the mother of 5 children. The youngest, Ameen, is my business partner. And I have a background in health and wellness, was in the fitness industry for years until Ameen asked me to partner with him in this business. So I left that career and joined forces with him. And initially the idea was born in 2015, but yeah, here we are today. I guess we'll talk more about the business itself as we go, but I have a degree in psychology. I was really happy with my career in fitness and therapy and had no intention of leaving it, but you never know where life's going to take you, right? So here we are today.
Well, they say children change you. That's definitely
yes.
For sure.
Yes, true statement.
So tell us about Cedar Valley. Tell us about the products. Tell us about, because I know that you did a little bit of a switch recently. So just for those who might not be familiar, explain it a little bit.
Sure. So Ameen was in grade 10. There was an announcement that 30 students in the city of Windsor could receive a $3,000 grant to start a business. So that's how it all started. He wanted to be his own boss, have his own business, and came home and asked me for help. It's a long story short. I was always making the Fattoush salad for the hockey parties. And one of the moms years prior to that had asked us to bottle it and sell it because you could not get Fattoush dressing in the grocery stores. You could only get it at a Middle Eastern restaurant. So for listeners that aren't familiar with Fattoush, it's a Middle Eastern salad with your greens, your vegetables, but the dressing is very specific. It has sumac is very key, mint, olive oil, lemon. And then you top it with fried pita chips, so instead of croutons. So they stay crispy. Okay. When they're fried, they stay crispy in the salad. So that was the idea, was to bottle the dressing. I finally came up with a recipe after he harassed me for 6 months. And we just played around. It was a high school project, right? So we just played around with it. He sold it to his teachers. I sold it to my members at the gym. And then someone said, you should really do a farmer's market. So 2017, we did our first market. And people were going crazy over the dressing because it was something that they could not get at a grocery store. And it was super clean label, no sugar, no preservatives, nothing bad in it, only extra virgin olive oil, no seed oils. So we just, for fun, because you have to have pita chips for Fattoush, I got these little Dollarama baggies, tied it around the neck of the bottle, bonus with purchase, pita chips. Well, I didn't realize the pita chips were going to take off, so people wanted to start buying the pita chips. So they were kind of a pair. Those are our first 2 products. And then 2018 started getting into more stores. And by 2020, we had already had someone making the dressing for us because the volume was large and we didn't have the capability to do it ourselves anymore. But we couldn't find anyone to make the pita chips. So July 2020, we took a chance and came into this 5,000 square foot facility that we're in right now, and started manufacturing our own pita chips. So that shipped out our first order in 2021. And wow, like it's just taken over the business like rapidly to the point where we've actually pivoted. And our very first product, the reason why Cedar Valley was born, is no longer with us. We've let go of that, which was a very hard decision to make.
I could imagine.
It was like my 6th child, right? Like it was my baby. very, very difficult decision to make. It took us a long time to come to that decision and to actually announce it. But when you're in a business, you have to do what's best for the business. And with olive oil prices quadrupling, and our quality is so important to us that I wasn't going to sacrifice and substitute it out for sunflower oil or some other kind of oil that, you know, just doesn't align with our mission. So we had to make that decision and let go of the dressings. And since then, to be honest, the pita chips have taken off even more. So very grateful. Thank God that we've been able to stay afloat with that decision that we've made, and really see that it was almost holding us back from putting more effort and more success into the pita chip side of the business.
There are so many things from your story that I could pick at and just start talking about. But the thing that amazes me is just the fact that that there was already this input of support from like the city of Windsor for high school students. Like that blows my mind already. Like I've never heard about that. Maybe if they go to a speech competition, but to start a business for high schoolers, that's like $3,000 isn't. It's a small amount, but it's not it's a big amount.
Yeah.
But it's a lot.
Yeah. He was able to order everything that we needed to even just to pilot that dressing. He got the bottles and the labels and the seals, the caps, everything. He was able to order all that. He started, you know, he had to have a business plan. He was able to really get it off the ground with that 3,000. And then from there, we went to the small business center. And because it's kind of related in a sense. So there was a starter company program, which gave us another $5,000 once we completed the program. And that helped us continue because, I mean, I was doing this out of my kitchen to start with. I didn't know it was going to go anywhere. I had my little blender. I had my appliances ready. I didn't have to buy anything new, but I was just using what I had at home, just thinking it was going to last for his high school, you know, whatever, like grade 12, and then we'd be done. But they really helped us a lot too. So Windsor is a little entrepreneurial hub, I think. I mean, I don't know, I could be wrong, but you know, they got there at the university, they've got the entrepreneurial center. And so there's so many resources in the city to help entrepreneurs take off and start their company.
That's interesting. See, I actually didn't know that. Yeah. I think about the GTA a lot, but I know Windsor's not a small place either. Like I have family that lives there. Yeah. So like starting the biz in the early steps, I know that it's more understandable to know how you keep going now, but in the early stages, you know, to keep going and go, oh, I have something here. Was there always like an entrepreneurial spirit in the family prior to this, or was this just a totally new thing?
Yeah, I grew up with a father who was an entrepreneur, and so we always had to work in the family businesses. He had several businesses from back in, so I'm from Iowa, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So a lot of farmland, a lot of animals. So he was involved in things from feed companies to printing to restaurants and just a variety. He was always switching businesses around. So taking risks was not an issue for me growing up because we were constantly pivoting and changing businesses and moving. And so it was just a constant roller coaster ride growing up, to the point where when I got married to my husband, who's Canadian, he was really interested in starting a business together. And I dug my heels in. I'm like, no, I lived that life growing up. I really don't enjoy it. I just my goal was to get married, have kids, raise a family. That was it. You know, if I had to work, I'd go 9 to 5, come home, forget about my job, focus on my family, you know, and do whatever outside of work stuff. Because I know when you own a business, it's a 24/7 operation. So so the blood was in me, but I was hoping that it might have skipped my children, but apparently number 5 it got the itch. So he brought it back to my life.
Okay, so that makes a little bit more sense. So this wasn't totally new to you, you know, growing up, experiencing those changes and that. Did also that have a lot of moving around, or were you always in? Before you got married, you mentioned you grew up in Idaho. Were you situated? Iowa.
Yeah, it's okay. Common. So, when we moved around, but within the city, like we never left the city. It was just constantly moving from business to business, house to house, depending on, you know, where we were at financially, and kind of rich one day, poor the next, depending on how the businesses were, you know, going. But my dad was brilliant entrepreneur. He could take a business that was run into the ground and build it up. and then he'd move on to the next project. And so it was, yeah, it was quite an experience growing up.
Were there a lot of stories growing up from your father telling you, or was he more of the quiet man that didn't actually tell you what was going on?
No, he just ran it, and he just needed us there to help,
Okay.
day-to-day stuff, right?
Okay. I mean,
I'm the
okay.
youngest, and I'm the youngest too. So it was more my older brother who ended up taking over the printing company. So he knew, like, the older siblings knew more about the runnings of it. I was just there to, when I was 6, I was standing on a chair washing dishes at the restaurant because they had to find a job for me because I was the youngest, but we all had to be there. So yeah, that was it. I didn't know that. I mean, it was kind of cool though. Back in his day, he would, my dad was a smoker, unfortunately, but he ended up quitting eventually. But he would go to his donut shop, have his coffee and donut and cigarette, and he'd come home, empty his pockets, and he'd have the napkins, the serviettes.
Yes.
With all his numbers, all his calculations were written down on it. And my dad had grade 12 education. So like, it just looking back at that, it was just so cool. And then sometimes I'll see Ameen, he's so much like his grandfather. Sometimes I'll see Ameen with his little scribbles on, not necessarily on napkins, and he's not a smoker, and drinks coffee once in a while, but he loves his donuts. But he'll, have his little chicken scratch on papers with his calculations of, because he handles the finances of the business. So yeah, it kind of reminds me of my dad. God rest his soul. My parents are not with me anymore, but man, I do, like, just looking back now that I have a business, I'm like, wow, my dad would just be in this place like a dirty shirt, just all over it, just helping out and the floors and running the machines. And yeah, he would be so happy to see this business.
That's amazing. That's so good. So with your journey, as you've kept going along, what has been that, you wanted the 9 to 5, but at what point did you say, okay, I might take this full time. Like, this is where I'm going to start taking it full time. What was that change for you?
Yeah. So in 2019, both Ameen and I had to make a decision because we were starting to get into more stores. The business was getting more demanding on us. It wasn't just a part-time gig anymore. So we both had to make a decision. So I left my fitness career and just dove right in, because you can't, you get to a certain point in your business, you have to make that choice of whether you're going to give up what you were doing before that, or whether you just want to keep it as a part-time gig, right? So you have to make that decision. Is this what you want for your, like, do you really want this to push this to success? You're going to have to give it your all. So I left my career. Ameen left university, and he had he signed junior B hockey, but then declined it because of the business. So he gave up that level of hockey. He gave up university because, honestly, and we supported that, my husband and I, because you can always go back to school. But you can't, if this is an opportunity, you got to try this and see if it's going to take you where you want to go, because there may not be an opportunity after you graduate from university. So yeah, he did that. I gave up my fitness career. We both jumped in full force, and it just kind of steamrolled after that. And it's not an easy decision to make because you give up a lot to do that, but it's the only way you can try to make your business successful, is by doing it that way.
That makes sense. And what is it that draws you, that you keep coming back for it? Because you must enjoy despite the craziness, there has to be some parts that you actually you enjoy about it.
Yeah, there have been so many ups and downs, so many mistakes that we've made, that cost us a good amount of money. And because I had a fitness background and a rehab background, Ameen was like 17, 18 years old. He had no idea what consumer packaged, neither one of us knew what consumer packaged goods were. So we just had to learn this as we grew, because we just had no background in this. So a lot of mistakes because of that, right? And I tell this one story because this is really what kind of set it for me. We were renting this facility to make the dressing. It was like in Colborne, so it was like, what, I don't remember. We'd go 6 hours up the 401 and leave in the middle of the night. It's that because we would rent the kitchen for the day and then come back at night. It was just a lot. We'd have to take our supplies with us. It was so much. And there was one, we were making 250 liters of dressing. And and I had cut myself without knowing. And in that big vat, I cut myself. And there was no blood in it, but it was on the can of olive oil. So you can't take a chance.
No.
We just had to chuck all of that. We had to just dump it down the drain. Like there's nothing else you could do but dump it. And I remember I was so upset because I didn't even feel it, didn't see it, right? Didn't notice it. One of the other workers noticed it, and thank God. And I just told them, you know what? I just need to go outside for a minute. And I just went outside and I just stood against the building and I just sunk to the ground crying and crying because I'm like, oh my God, all that work. And it wasn't even so much the money, it was all the work. And we've been going like almost every weekend to this place or at least a couple times a month. I can't even remember now, it's a blur. But it was just such a long process and such physically demanding, right? And sleepless nights. And I just was tired and I just sat against that building and I cried. And then I think my daughter called me at that time. She must have just called me because I remember talking to her and I was like so upset and I'm venting to her. My oldest daughter, I vent to her a lot. And she said, Mom, you know what? Maybe this is the end of the road for you. Maybe you've done as much as you can do for the business. And maybe this is just it. Maybe this is the turning point. Maybe you just need to walk away, go back to doing your fitness career and just leave it. And she said, but I have a question. Why do you keep doing this? Why, when you have these issues, you have these problems, why do you get up the next day and go back to it? And it was such a great question because that would establish my why. And I said, in my tears, I'm like, because every time something bad happens, a customer emails me or somebody texts me a message with their kids saying, thank you so much for making a healthy dressing for our kids. They love salads now, or they'll eat whatever, they'll eat healthy food now because of your dressing. So I'm telling her this and it just made me realize why I get up and do it the next day after those grueling events. And that wasn't the only event like that. That was just one specific one. There have been many others where I've had to really sit back and think about, why am I doing this? And it's interesting because I'm telling you, Veronica, it without fail, whether it's me going through something or me going through something, one of us making those mistakes, I'm telling you, like, without a doubt, without an event happening like this, there is always a customer that will text us, email us, share a story following that incident within 24 hours saying thank you for it. So it's like, you can almost predict it. Oh, we're going through this. Okay, wait for it. I'm sure there's going to be a customer that's going to send us I'm telling you, it's incredible. Like you can't you can't plan for that. You can't write that stuff. It's so beautiful how that happens to keep us lifted and bring us back and pull our socks up. So like, okay, we got to keep going. These customers are really, really supporting us.
It's amazing how if someone writes in, they might not realize how much they could be making a difference in someone's life just to be like sharing, oh, I really enjoyed your product. Or now that I'm eating, like you mentioned, with my kids are enjoying the product, it really makes a difference in someone's day, and words are very powerful.
Oh, I'm telling you, customers will say, thank you for not using Cedos. As you get bigger, please don't compromise. As please keep doing what you're doing. Please keep it simple. And because it's really hard to find products with, our sea salt chips have 5 ingredients. That's it. And there's no reason to add in all that other stuff. That's what I don't understand, is like, it doesn't need all the other junk in there. So why add things in if you don't need them? I mean, just as a kind of a aside, when I was developing the dressing recipes, I thought I would have to put in all these ingredients, all these spices and ingredients, like especially the pomegranate. I've been putting in all this stuff and I can't get it to give me that, wow sensation that I really want with the dressings. So I started taking ingredients out one by one by one. I went from I must have pulled out maybe 5 ingredients and that was what made it taste so much better, is that less is more kind of thing.
Well, it's like when you get a good quality, like you have a fruit that's in season versus not in season.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, I didn't realize that just this could taste so much better.
Yeah, exactly. So the simpler, the more natural, the better it is.
Mm-hmm. I like as well of that with your story with the why. It's an important story. It's an important why for you, of course, but it's not necessary. Everyone can have a different why, and it doesn't have to be I'm doing because I want to make the best possible product and all of that. Or, I mean, of course you do. I would imagine, of course you do. But I guess what I'm trying to go at is that so many people get caught up in the whys, that they have to be these huge, large reasons. Like, why am I going? Like, I think about this all the time when I'm doing my PhD and I'm trying to do my batches, and I'm like, even yesterday I was like, why am I doing this again? Like, really, is my research really going to be helping that many people? But then I'm like, I just like learning, and that's an okay why for me. So it's nice to hear that some of the small reminders for you are your why. The why, just to have someone eat and enjoy healthy food.
Yeah, and the time that people take to email us from all over Canada is, I mean, if any of you are out there listening to this, our customers that have taken that time to sit down and send a note to us, I can't thank them enough, because it really means the world to us to hear that. I mean, I don't know if I ever did that. If I ever took the time to sit down and say, oh, look up a company and say, thank you for doing this. Like, it blows my mind that these people will reach out to us like that. I love it. It's fantastic.
This podcast episode is sponsored by CareersNow. CareersNow is Food and Beverage Ontario's multi-year workforce development initiative that is connecting students and job seekers with employers in Ontario's food and beverage processing industry to connect you with exciting career opportunities. Check out careersnow.ca for more information on exciting jobs, career information, industry mentors, and training opportunities for professional development. Let's get back into the episode.
I like that. And I'm going to actually shift the conversation, because we talk about being an entrepreneur and we think about just the selling side, the business side, but you've done a big thing by starting a manufacturing facility, having staff. That's a whole nother side to it. So I guess I want to just learn a little bit more from the inner workings and such. What does that side entail for you? So I guess I'm just saying, where does your role come in, being an entrepreneur and running a manufacturing facility? That's a lot different.
Yeah. So initially with the dressings, we found a co-packer, so we didn't have to worry about having our own facility. But like I said, when we opened up in 2020, here we go. Like, okay, because we couldn't find anyone else. So we had to just do it ourselves, not knowing what to expect, not knowing, like, oh, there's just so many learning curves here. Because I was doing everything. Ameen was running the business side of things. I was doing all the production side of things and development. And so, we just had one employee when we moved here. And because again, we started, everything we do is like, okay, let's just do what we need, just like not overdo it to start with. Like, we'll find bottlenecks, solve that, find another one, solve it. So just small steps to figure it out kind of as we go. So it was, hiring someone that we knew initially. So it was safe to have a friend of ours that we knew. And then they got too busy to just have one person. So it started adding on staff. And it was a challenge for sure, because then it comes along with, I know how fussy I am when I make the product. I have to teach that to my staff. Even today, even though my staff that are working right now have been with me for, a while, and some of them since the beginning, I still walk out. And if I see, I saw something I had to correct just, before the call. And I'm like, come on, you guys know this. Like, it's constant reminders, right? And you just can't, all my staff are, not all, but I mostly have general labor staff where they actually make the product. They're amazing. They work so hard. They never take advantage of anything, but it's a routine job. So you've got to always kind of remind them that, don't forget why you're here, what the quality and how important that is. And so just constant reminders that way. But it's a challenge to have to manage staff. And, when you're starting off, you can't afford to hire all the management, right? It's me and Ameen wearing 25 hats. So it's now grown to a point where I have a morning supervisor. I have an afternoon
Wow.
supervisor. I just hired a quality, a QA tech, and I have my admin now, who's just like, she helps me with everything. So, but it took, well, we're going on 4 years. In July we'll be here, right? So it's taken time to develop that. Like, we haven't just said, oh, okay, let's start this and let's hire all these people and let's, have all these layers of management and not have the business. So we had to take the business first to justify building that staff.
Wow. Well, congratulations on your addition. I love hearing, as we've been talking, you see the little pieces like you've been mentioning, the stepwise, because it's so easy to look at these businesses that are huge, they're massive scale. These businesses, they're massive scale, and you're like, I will never be able to get there, or how could they even get there? And with your story, there's just these little levels of, okay, well, I need to do this. Let's hone in on that problem, figure out how to deal with it, and then we'll worry about the next step later, because it's not an issue now. We need to worry about our issues currently.
Exactly. And it's really difficult as a small business to not compare yourself to other small businesses and see, because it's like the shiny apple, right? So everything in social media is just so deceiving, because everything looks like it's, so successful and glamorous and all this. And we've had people, it's funny because we've had people come to us, small businesses, try to get started, and like they make assumptions that it was just easy for us. No, it was. And I try to tell people it's not easy. What you see on social media is just for fun, but we're not gonna, we can't put everything that goes on here in a day on social media. And so we had to get to a point where we just like, okay, we just need to laser focus on our business, what we're doing, not look around and compare ourselves to anybody else. If we grow slower than, the next door neighbor that's doing another product, that's fine. Because once you start comparing yourself to other businesses, you kind of lose sight of, and then you lose sight of what your goals are, because your goals are different than their goals. You lose sight of what's required to get to that next level. And you get a little bit too hard on yourselves, I think. Just expectations may be unrealistic at that point when you start comparing to other businesses. So staying focused on what you're doing and not worrying about how fast you grow. That's a big one. Just grow as you grow and embrace that where you're at, and let that kind of fuel you to the next stage of your business.
I think that's good life advice in general, if you want to transition it to that, because it's very easy when you are comparing someone. If you're in a certain, I think a PhD, that's always like an example. And when you compare yourself, well, that person has 2 papers written, or that person has 3 papers written. You're like, why do I not have that? I'm working as hard. What am I doing wrong? And it's very easy. It's like, how do you shift the mindsets to still be a growth mindset and like be somewhat realistic with yourself? Like, I might be having a problem, rather than just putting yourself down. How do you have that growth mindset to say, I will get better, but then also acknowledge where, like, taking your own issue, so to say, face on, because sometimes you have to confront some things you don't want to in order to grow. But
Exactly.
Yeah. And so with that also being said, I wanted to also, again, talk a little bit more about the small business side, because one thing I loved when I was doing research for this was that you celebrate everyone's birthdays.
Yeah, my staff love birthdays. We're getting a little too big now, but when we had like our staff of probably 11, we've doubled that now, but when we had our staff of 11, they love birthdays so much. And it makes them feel special for that day. And so, yeah, we would, run out and grab a cake and surprise them and pretend that we didn't know it was their birthday, like we forgot, and just have this little, sing happy birthday to them. And yeah, it was really nice. We loved it. That's the growing pains that you go through though, right? When you get a little bigger, it gets harder to manage that. But they're so funny, because even yesterday, one of the girls came in, she goes, what day is Ameen's birthday again? I know it's in May. I'm like, oh my God, you guys just won't stop. I told them, okay, we can't do birthdays anymore. We're getting too big. We have too many staff now. But they still, on my birthday, they surprised me. And and I can see they're already planning something for Ameen's birthday, and but we try, and every now and then, like if it's a special day for someone and we can kind of sneak in, like especially for the more senior staff, if I can sneak something into the office, then we'll do something for them. But honestly, my staff I'm very grateful for the staff that we have. They're so committed and dedicated, and they deserve to have at least an hour, a special time on their birthday to celebrate that. And if that's the least that we can do for them. But yeah, it is getting a little more difficult though as we get a little bigger.
Mm-hmm. I just had to point that out.
It might be birthday cards now instead of birthday cakes, right?
I know my lab's quite big as well. I mean, obviously we're not a manufacturing facility, but I'm just like, hey guys, we just had a birthday like last week. Like,
yeah.
But I just had to point it out because one of the things that we point out at Food Grads is that there's a lot of small businesses, like the majority, at least in Ontario, I think the majority of businesses are smaller businesses. And I think when a lot of people think of manufacturing, they think of the big plants and like multiple shifts and all that. But, you don't always have to go to these larger facilities. There's a lot of opportunities at smaller ones. And I would imagine as well, like a lot of your staff are able to move around in different like types of do your staff do different types of activities?
Multitask. So pretty much all of them can do anything that goes on here. So whether it's production to packaging and shipping and receiving, and so most of them are very well trained across departments. So yeah, we try to rotate them as much as we can. It's not always possible, but I mean, some people just like to come in and do the one job and leave. And we love that because that makes it easier for us. If you just like the one job you're doing, perfect. But then there are others that want some variety and we'll accommodate. Again, we can do that because we're smaller. So we can play around with that and move them around a little bit. But yeah, they're, and I just, even back to the birthday things, like we try to do staff activities too. Like we just shut down that day of Dragon's Den and we went bowling and oh my God, it was hilarious because most of our staff are refugees from we collaborate with the Unemployed Health Center. So they're not all, but a lot of them are. So, English is a second language for them and very limited English skills. But they are a hoot. So making them bowling, some of them have never been bowling before.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's quite funny. It was a lot of fun. And they have fun together when they're working too. So right now they're still allowed to play music in the facility just to have some background noise. And then the odd time they'll play Arabic music and we might just stop production for a few minutes so we can do a little dance. And so I don't know if I should say that out loud, but but they do have fun here.
Amazing. And I mean, you pointed it out. I have to bring it up. So you were on Dragon's Den, and that would have been one of the craziest events of your life. How has it been post Dragon's Den for you? Has things changed a lot?
Wow. It's been we filmed last May 1st of 23.
Okay, so we're like on a year.
Yeah,
now.
Since we filmed, but it didn't air until November.
Right.
Yeah, it was the epitome of this business. Like nothing beats that. I mean, that is the show we've watched. Ameen's been watching that since he was a kid. Like it's season 18, so it's been going on for 18 years. He's 24. So that was the show that we would always watch. That was the one show nobody ever argued about putting on TV. That was like our favorite show. So to actually be on it, I can't even describe the feelings that we had to actually be on it. I mean, we couldn't say anything right after because we didn't know if we were going to make the show, even though they filmed 160 businesses, but only 80 actually make the episode.
Okay.
So we kept it quiet because we didn't know if we were going to make it to the next, right? They didn't tell us until like end of August-ish. So we would just be like, wake up the next day. Were we just on Dragon's Den? It was hilarious. Did we just film on Dragon's Den? And it was just such a high for the longest time. And then when the show aired, it's been pretty crazy since then. Between Costco and Dragon's Den, it's given us a ton of exposure, and it's really really helped people learn about who we are. And it was, Dragon's Den is interesting because you watch it, but then when you're on it, you realize that it really is like, you're really thrown out to the wolves. They don't script you. They don't prep you. They just say, go out and stand.
Wow.
Yeah. They say there's an X on the floor, go stand on the X and don't move. Just good luck. That's it.
Yeah.
They don't tell you what to expect, nothing. I mean, obviously, because we've watched the show for so many years, we knew we had to know our numbers and, I mean, we still had to, even to get to that point, we had a virtual interview with 2 of the producers. So we still had to answer all those questions.
Oh, okay.
Like, not preparing us, but they said we had to get past them to make it to the filming. So we had to know our numbers and but I mean, we've lived this business. No one's done this for us. We did it all ourselves. So it's not that hard to go on and talk about your business when you've lived it 24/7 for that many years. But we were so nervous at first just because of the pitch, because practicing it, we kept screwing up on the way there. And we're just like, just like there was 1 or 2 words that was like, I would screw up and then he would screw up. Like, so we were just like, oh my God, like, are we going to make it through the pitch? Forget about everything else. So once we got through the pitch, we could just breathe because we knew the numbers. We knew our business. The rest of it was no brainer. And the cool thing too is you're sitting in front of them, or you're standing in front of them. You can't see any cameras. So it kind of feels like you're just chilling and hanging out.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I would have expected that you would see, like, I know as a viewer, you don't see the cameras, but the quality is so good as well of the image that you would think there was one like everywhere.
I know. We didn't see cameras. And it was just this big open stage with the dragon sitting there. And I would forget that I even, obviously, if you saw the episode, I'm just quite the actress. I forgot that we were mic'd up. So I'd be trying to whisper to Ameen.
I was wondering about that. I was wondering about that.
Oh my God. After I saw the show, I'm like, oh my God. I'm talking to him like I'm trying to whisper like I don't have a mic on. And I totally forgot I had the mic on.
Okay. I was wondering about that. So I was like, does she? I'm like, is this just editing? Is this like
No, it was totally all me and my awkward self that I sometimes am. But
that's a really big on the spot thing. For a big decision.
Well, and that offer that Arlene made was just like totally unexpected. And then I'm thinking, so they didn't tell us if you get an offer. I mean, my husband was backstage, but they didn't tell us how it works if you get an offer. So they just said,
okay,
if you need to call him at some point, you can. But because she offered our valuation just ×4, I mean, it was like, I don't want to lose. I thought we needed to call him, but he's like, no, if we call him, maybe she's going to change her mind kind of thing, right? So he was worried she would change her mind. And it wasn't like she was saying $1 million for 50%. Like that would have been different, right? We wouldn't we would have needed to, we wouldn't have accepted it. But you know what I'm saying? Like she gave us exactly what we were asking ×4. So how do you even, there's nothing to discuss.
Yeah, I would imagine you're proud of your business, but you don't go in expecting that someone believes in you so much that they're going to quadruple the amount. Like you were like, maybe they'll go half, like, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's pretty incredible.
Wow. I'm not totally like, it's a large amount, but I'm not surprised with Arlene because she's one of the like she really wants to promote CPG and food in Canada. Like she is being relentless with this between venture parks and like all these different opportunities. It's nice to have someone in the corner of like food Canadian innovation because it needs a little bit of a boost.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's really awesome.
And
we were going in, I mean, that's who we wanted, right? What CPG company doesn't want Arlene Dickinson?
I know for sure. Have you have things changed from the plant wise since the day, or besides like getting more recognition from the Costco sides and all that, has your business changed a lot since then?
We actually have outgrown our space, so we just leased a facility 2.5 times the size because now we're at a point where the demand has increased quite dramatically over the past year. So we needed to scale up, so that we're in scale up mode now. We just purchased a continuous fryer. So it's this big bad boy 12, automatic. We're automating basically. So automating so that way, start to finish, it's one line. And so we definitely need a bigger facility for that. So we're just in limbo between two facilities right now, waiting for all the install and commissioning and all that to happen. So we can't shut
Amazing.
down. So we have to stay here until that other place is ready to go. And we've tested the machine out and we can actually just kind of move everything and keep going with production.
With this big, with your business, you've been making these big decisions. Where, like, this is new, a lot of this is new to you. Like, where are you learning this? Or like, I know that there's trial and error, but where do you look for information to help you along? Because this is big decision. If you make the wrong one, you might not be able to recover. So like, how do you prep and learn?
We did make the wrong one. So we did bring in a year and a half ago, December of 2022. Yes. We had purchased a machine from California because we thought we would be automated by now. Brought it in. I mean, they went out and tested it. Everything seemed to be fine. Got it in-house, and it was a lemon. So
it was a what, sorry?
A lemon. It was just, it didn't work. So it was just, there were so many issues with it. They sent a technician for a week. They were here trying to get it to perform. It just wasn't happening. So we had to ship it back. But so those are the trial and errors it wasn't really trial and error because we did test out the machine. It just it wasn't the right machine. So we talked to, along the way, going back to the very beginning, again, Small Business Center was my help then, and they provided a lot of resources. So I always tell everybody that's starting out, whether it's CPG or service related or whatever your business is, it doesn't really matter what kind of business it is. If you're starting a business journey, go to your and every city has their local small business center. So go to your small business center, start there. Because not only will you potentially get financial assistance, you'll get a lot of resource assistance as well. So that kind of is where we started, and we talked to a lot of people. We talked to other business owners. We especially when we were trying to get someone to make the product for us, we went to a lot of different manufacturing facilities to ask them for help and to take on our product. And a lot of times they would give us a tour. So we would kind of learn just from being out there and seeing how they operate. And get involved in, again, through the Small Business Center, there's another program called Foodpreneur Program. And it's a series of, I think, 10 or 12 weeks where they bring experts in to help to give advice and to talk about whatever it is that their specialty is, whether it's packaging, regulations, equipment, processing, like map processing. So that was another one, Fanshawe College in London. I found about their program, and they're subsidized by the government. So there's a lot of subsidies out there too. So I hooked up with them, and they were able to map out our process to tell us, maybe you should try that. And he helped me a lot, the engineer there, because there were some things, again, like, I don't know, I'm just doing what I think it should be based on what I know at that time. And he was able to look at the process and say, you could save a lot if you do this differently, or if you do that. So we implemented whatever changes he suggested. So stuff like that, always kind of being out there. Get newsletters for, different, I always get the Small Business Center newsletter. If you're in any kind of agri-food business, sign up for OMAFRA's newsletter, Ontario Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs. Tap into the government, man. There's so much in the government that they want to see small businesses succeed. So tap into their resources, and honestly, it's made all the difference in the world for us, whether it's funding, whether it's mentorship, expertise. I'm relentless when it comes to getting information. So even when we moved here, I tried to call the health unit. They're like, no, if you don't have a storefront, we don't have anything to do with you. I'm like, okay. And then I called CFIA, which is our governing body, right? Canadian Food Inspection. Yeah, no, we don't really set you up. So, okay. So I just kept I kept searching and making calls to who is going to help me set up this facility. Finally found someone under the Ministry of Buildings or Commercial. I don't know how I found this person, but I was just Googling, can someone help me build a manufacturing facility? Finally found someone through the ministry that it was during COVID, right? July of 2020. So I remember taking my laptop to give him a video tour of the facility as I'm talking to him, because I'm like, do I need to put up walls? Do I need to do this? Do I need to? I didn't know. Food safety regulations, all this stuff. And so he was able to help me get started that way. So you just got to tap into those resources and try not to reinvent the wheel. Like, there are people out there. Sometimes it's hard to find them, but there are people out there. But I would always say, go to the government first. They have the people there, and half the time you don't have to pay for it. So it's kind of like free help, because when you're starting a small business, every half a cent makes a difference. So do those programs that are free, that will give you what you need to get going.
That's a really interesting insight, because like, I know I said at the beginning that the government, it feels like we're behind in food innovation, but there's resources available, but you have to be, like you said, relentless in finding out. And I guess it goes to show bureaucracy can a little bit be a problem, but
yeah, but you got to kind of find your way around, right? Navigate that system. And I mean, I remember when we started, people said, oh, there's so much money out there to be had. And then when I'm talking to other, food owners, they're like, no, that's a myth. There's no money out there. I'm like, well, I'm going to try. There's money out there. So you just got to go for it. It's not easy. I mean, application process is quite intense and grueling, but it's worth it. It's paid off for us.
Do you find that you have more luck calling people or email?
That's a good question. I actually like to call. I've been pretty fortunate with getting people to answer the phones. So I find email gets lost, and I'm guilty of that as well. I lose emails, and and I mean, always, we have a thing like, you never check your emails. I do, but then I forget, and then they get lost, and I forget to respond.
There's a lot of things going on.
Yeah, so phone calls definitely are better for. I'm old school that way.
Yeah, sometimes actually old school is becoming better because less people are doing the phone call, so then it's easier to actually get a hold of someone if they're like, oh, someone actually called me.
That's true. I know. Interesting, a phone call.
I know, and it's like a normal, like, it actually has a real person's name. Like,
yes.
Is it serious?
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Well, we'll take it. So taking a step back, I do realize that we're getting close to the end of our call. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that I could explore, but, I'm just going to take it back and try to take this call into advice. So if you were to give advice to aspiring entrepreneurs, maybe those who are younger, what advice would you give?
Good question. There's a couple things I would say. Know your whys, of course. And if you're, I tell people, including my other children who have great business ideas, but they're sitting on them. So I always tell them, if you are passionate about what you have, what your business is, what your product is, whatever it is, if you really, truly believe in it and you're passionate about it, just go for it. You got to take the risk, right? But taking that risk, knowing that you're going to fail, because you can't just go from 0 to 100 without dips in the road. You're going to fail, and that's okay, because those are usually the best learning experiences, is when you go through those dips. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. You got to get through it. It's uncomfortable, but it's going to bring you more success. There is no successful person in the world that has not failed several times. So learn to embrace that, especially when you're young. It's difficult, right? Embrace it. Surround yourself with people that are like-minded. Your friends may not understand. So find yourself, find a few entrepreneurial friends that will want to talk business 24/7. Those are the people you need to be around, because your friends most likely aren't going to want to hear about your business all the time, but you're going to want to talk about it all the time. So try to know your whys. If you're passionate, take the risks, expect the failures, and surround yourself with people that can appreciate what you're going through and help build you up when you're down.
I like that. And I'm going to leave it there because I couldn't add on anything better than that. So I'm just going to finish it off with the last question being, where can people find you in Cedar Valley?
Well, we are pretty much all across Canada. Well, we are across Canada now. We've gotten a lot of asks about Costco. So our Costco rotation ended in February, March of this year, but watch for it to come back in September in the East, and I believe October or November in the West. In the meantime, we've got Sobeys, Loblaws / Zehrs, Giant Tiger. I'm always like, I always go blank with this question. Giant Tiger, Longo's, Healthy Planet. There are just several retailers out there. Check out our website if I haven't given you enough information at Cedar Valley, cedarvalleyselections.ca. That has our store locator, so you'll be able to find. Oh, Amazon too. That's another one.
Of course.
So yeah. So check out the website and and let us know if you can't. If there's no store in your area, we'll ship you from our place. Ship you chips.
I love that. And I'll give it another shout out to those that are listening. The chips are amazing. The cinnamon ones, thank you for having cinnamon all year round. It is so hard to find products that are cinnamon all year round. So
that was a customer request, right? Customers actually demanded that we keep it all year round. So we listened.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Surria, for coming on the show. I really loved learning, having a peek behind what it's like to be an entrepreneur. I'm not one myself, but I think that the world is fascinating and I love hearing from others. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Veronica. It was fun. I really enjoyed being here, and I appreciate you having me on.
It doesn't matter where you are in your life, you can become an entrepreneur. But to have a successful business, you need to have a plan, which sometimes requires outside help. Listen to our interview with Mike McNeil, Vice President of Operations at Venture Park Labs, and learn what it is like to start a business in Canada.